This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Thursday edition. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, on Mac Sports, and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages. Please like, follow, and share our Facebook pages. Subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great Northeast Streaming Sports shows. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Our website is nessp.info for all the information on all the shows, guest stores, sports information, and links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hurst, legendary boxing writer, former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. Together, bring you national sports with special focus on local professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jack. How are you doing?
Good, Mac. Very good. A lot of news.
Yes, there is. There is a lot of news. And, Jack, I was and we'll get to a lot of the news between 9 and 9:30. We got a lot of guests coming in today. We got Carter B., our NHL expert, with a little bit of Islander news. We're going to talk a little bit about the Islanders today. We also got Randy Lang, the executive media consultant for the New York Jets. So we got a little Jets news coming in here today. We'll also have in one of our friends, Brady Tinker, from A Cowboy Life. He's a Dallas Cowboy expert. And we'll talk to him a little bit about the Cowboys and how they played and, Dak Prescott and all that good stuff. So he'll be in around 9:30. So we got a pretty busy show today. And as you said, a lot of news out there in sports. Of course, we got the MLB playoff races going crazy right now. The games have just played. We got Thursday night football tonight with my Giants. And, Jack, let's start with the MLB first. And I want to take a quick look over here at the standings. And it's really interesting because the Rays, they've been losing the last 10. The Blue Jays are on fire. The Yankees and the Red Sox are kind of holding steady. So in the East, the Rays still have the best record in baseball at 90-56. They'll be the number one slot unless something happens in the next 2 weeks. Houston has 85 wins. But the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and Red Sox are in a dead heat for the final two wild card teams. The Red Sox came from behind and won yesterday.
You're mostly right, Mac. You're technically you're right, but by 1 percentage point, the Red Sox actually behind the Yankees. So on a technicality, if the season ended today, the Yankees would get the wild card slot.
Right, and that's only because, Jack, that the Red Sox have played 2 more games, it looks like, than the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Now, I don't know how that's going to be made up. Right now, they got 83 wins and 65 losses. So, and the Blue Jays and Yankees have 82 and 64. So the Red Sox have a couple games on both these guys. I don't know how that's going to work on the end of the year. But you're right. If it ended today, right now, the Yankees and Blue Jays would be in. So, but it's a virtual dead heat. And the Jays are on fire. The Yankees and the Red Sox won last night. So they're keeping pace. And we'll see only 2 more weeks, Jack. Anything can happen.
The Yankees have a favorable schedule. It has to be pointed out. You have to win the games. To play teams like Minnesota, Cleveland, and they end up with the Boston Red Sox, which is the way it should be, head-to-head at the end of the season. And kudos to you, Mac. I got to compliment you. You were saying in the beginning of the year, you think the Red Sox could hang until the end. Maybe they won't make the playoffs, but they're going to hang until the very end. And yours truly said by the All-Star break, they'll be history. They'll be gone. They'll be finished. And you were right. I was wrong. I mean, the Red Sox, no matter, they could lose every game. the rest of the way, and you're still right. You know, they hung in, and maybe they will make the playoffs when all's said and done.
You don't know. I mean, you know, the Blue Jays have been hot. You know, when you go 8-2 in your last 10 games, I'm not saying you're due to start losing. Odds are, though, you can't keep that pace up, you know, at an 80% clip. But we'll see what happens.
If you look at their roster, the Blue Jays have a stronger roster than the Red Sox. So when all's said and done, you would think the Blue Jays are going to continue to assert themselves and get one of the 2 wild card slots.
Yeah, but it depends on who you're playing too, Jack, right? I mean, if depending on the schedule of the Blue Jays and the schedule of the Red Sox also, I mean, we'll see what happens. Listen, the Blue Jays are a good team. There's no doubt about it. So let's look at the National League really quick, right? The NL East, there's 2 weeks left, man. Anything can happen over there. You got the Braves, Phillies, and the Mets. I mean, depending on who has a losing streak and a winning streak. Right now, the Braves are like 5-5 in their last 10. They're holding steady while the other 2 teams are falling. The Brewers, of course, are over there. They're in the they're breezing. They're going to be in the playoffs. There's no one's going to catch them. They're 12 and a half games out. But the Giants and the Dodgers, the Giants have gone 9-1 the last 10 games, Jack. The Dodgers 8-2. I mean, these 2 teams are going at it. San Diego beat the San Francisco Giants last night. That's their only loss in 10 games. But the surprise here, St. Louis Cardinals are starting to play really good ball. They've moved into the second wild card spot, Jack, ahead of the Padres.
Brett and myself told you that during our baseball show. We like the Cardinals to come from back and get the other wild card slot. But you mentioned the Giants and the Dodgers one moment. Let's say things hold the way they are and the Giants win the division. The Giants have had an incredible year. They've overachieved. Going forward, next year, the year after, you would think the Dodgers are going to still have a powerhouse team. They're going to spend the money. They're going to make the moves. The Giants have had this special year. Let's say the Giants win the division, which looks like it could very well be a reality right now. And the Dodgers play the wild card game, let's say against St. Louis, Cincinnati, San Diego. And the Dodgers win that game. The Dodgers then have to play the team with the best record, the Giants. And I don't think the Giants can beat the Dodgers in that type of playoff scenario. So let's say that plays out that way. The Dodgers then bump the Giants in the playoffs. It's kind of sad to me because going forward next year, I can't see for the life of me the Giants having any close to the type of season they had this year. Well, I could see the Dodgers continuing to be a powerhouse.
Well, I don't know if you're right because if, say, at the end of the day, the Dodgers would play St. Louis. Say the Dodgers win that game. Then the Dodgers would not – the Dodgers would be the first place wild card team. They would play the Giants. Is that correct?
The team with the best record.
Ooh, that would be a
like
tough
the Yankees also last year played Tampa Bay. Yeah.
Right. That would be a tough one. I don't know if the Dodgers beat them or not, Jack. Head-to-head, the Giants, I think, are up by 1 game. I don't know. We'll see. That would be a great opening round for sure over in the National League. That's for sure. That would be a great opening round. So,
waiting for you to mention the Mets, Mac.
Well, the Mets. Listen, I don't feel bad for the Mets. I mean, they got a home run ripped off from them by an unbelievable play in center field, going over the wall to get Alonso's ball. I mean, that was a home run. He come up off the ground. It looked like 2 feet to catch that ball to go over the wall. But listen, the Mets are what the Mets are, right? They have no DeGrom. If they had a DeGrom, Jack, they may be in first place right now. So, I mean.
Keep in mind, traditionally, they've lost games where DeGrom has pitched outstanding. Remember, DeGrom won the Cy Young Award a couple of years back, and he was only like 1 game over 500, his 1-loss record. So I don't necessarily buy that. That NL East, you know what Atlanta reminds me of? They remind me of a rich, wealthy person going to the worst neighborhood, standing on the street corner with the fanciest jewelry, taking out a wad of bills, and begging someone to take it off them. That's what Atlanta is. I mean, they're waiting for the Phillies and the Mets to catch them, and the Phillies and the Mets are just not doing it. Yeah. And Atlanta might just be staggering into the playoffs, this year. And they could be pretty dangerous in the playoffs once it begins. But right now, when you think of the Mets, 3 games under 500, that's incomprehensible with the personnel they have and with the moves they made. And I'm not going to blame anyone for the offseason moves. I didn't like the Lindor contract, but the bottom line, they did get a heck of a player in Lindor. They addressed the catcher situation with James McCann. They got a good middle reliever in Trevor May. And, they got Javier Baez in season 2. The Mets have made the moves. They just haven't performed. I don't want to say it's been disgraceful. I'm not condemning their effort. The effort is there, but something is wrong with this team. I mean, there's no excuse a team with that type of personnel should be 3 games under 500.
Well, backstage right now, we have Carter Jack. One comment before that. The Mets put it on the Yankees. That's all I got to say. Carter Bedavinga. Yes, sir. Our Carter B, our NHL expert. How we doing, Carter?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Not too bad, my friend. I mean, listen, 2 more months, right? We start up the hockey season. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the Islanders today, right? You got the new stadium coming up. I know you go to a lot of Islander games. You're there all the time. The new stadium sold out. The opening game minutes. The home opener sold out. You got one of those tickets, Carter?
Yeah, my mom and I we have a season ticket planned, so we'll be there opening night. It should be a lot of fun. We're excited.
Are you going to miss the old arena at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always bittersweet when something like this happens, but at the end of the day, I mean, their new rink, UBS Arena, is going to be, it's going to be everything that the fans have ever wanted in a hockey rink. So, as much as people are going to miss the Coliseum, UBS is definitely going to be, definitely going to be something that a lot of people want to see.
Carter, the Islander fans going to be out more enforced in the new arena? Because I could tell you, a few years back, I went to an Islander Ranger game at the Nassau Coliseum, and I saw a sea of blue all over the place. I didn't know any better, I think it was a Ranger home game, as well.
Well, that's only because the Ranger fans don't want to pay $1,000 to get into their own corporate arena. So, I mean, yeah, I'm excited for it either way. I'm not really focused on what the Rangers.
Nice response. Do. Nice dig at the Rangers. You did it well, Father. Kudos.
I had to do it to him. I had to.
So, I mean, this has been a long time in the making, right? They've been trying to do this for what, a decade now, Carter? I mean, they've ran into problems, and was it Brooklyn? I think they were trying to get an arena in at one time, and this is a long time coming. So, great for the Islanders that they're finally going to have a little bit of a stadium that they can be proud of. What reminds me of, Carter? Yankee Stadium. The old Yankee Stadium. They renovated it, and I went to it, but it still had that. It had that feeling, of the championships and everything. Then you go to a new stadium, and though it's nice, it's just not the same. And that's why I asked you that. I mean, it's just not the same. Going to a different stadium that's built, on the other side of the street, I think, is where they built that. But there's just something about the older parks and older arenas, and that's why I asked you. You're the third favorite right now at 20-1 to make the Stanley Cup, and 6th rated overall in another category. And the thing about the Islanders that I respect is you really don't have these huge stars, Carter, right? You don't have the stars other teams have. I mean, it's just a well-working unit based off a defensive philosophy. What do you think? You 3rd rated to make the Stanley Cup. You think that's fair, or do you think you guys should be a little bit higher?
I'd say it's pretty fair where they are. I mean, they didn't do too much to seriously upgrade their team. They made some little moves here and there, but I think at the end of the day, it's kind of nice to see them keep the same team together. I mean, some teams get to where the Islanders have over the past couple of seasons, and they decide to make some huge moves that wind up not working out, right? So, with the Islanders, I mean, they're clearly confident in the core that they have, and they're going to try and make a third run at a conference final or maybe even deeper this year. So we'll have to see what happens.
When does that stop? When does that stop, Carter? I mean, if you continue to play competitively, if you're up there and you're knocking on the door, say the next couple of years, but you don't break the door down, is that what I mean? What time frame would you stick with a team like this in the same philosophy if it's not working, or should the Islander fans be happy that you guys are in the in the semifinals or in the quarterfinals?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, the Islanders obviously haven't had a ton of success over the past, 20 plus years. So I think it's, it's important for the fans to be able to appreciate what's going on right now. But at the same time, you get this far and you want to win, right? So, I mean, usually I'd give it another 3 or 4 years with this core, but the Islanders are a relatively, they're an older group, so I don't know how much time they have left, to be honest. But I'm not really focused on a couple years down the line. I'm just focused on the present. So yeah.
You think about the last 2 years when Tampa Bay edged the Islanders, series that the Islanders could have won. Would they have beaten Dallas? Would they have beaten Montreal in the 2 Cup finals had they, gotten over the top?
Yeah, I absolutely think they would have, and that's not, it's not me trying to be biased or anything. I honestly think that the Islanders were the second best team in the league the past 2 years behind the Lightning. So, I don't know. I guess we'll know if they would have won those 2 cups, but I personally like to think they would have.
Well, the reason why I asked you about being competitive or winning is me and Jack have said on the show, and this is in all sports, I'd rather have a team that goes up and wins the championship, and then for a few years I'm out, than be there every year and not get to that ring. Because, I mean, ultimately, if you get that far, and you could have, say, a competitive team, say, for 8 years, Carter, right? You're in the playoffs, you almost make the championship, you're all in the playoffs, and it's all well and good, but it becomes like, well, that's good enough, right? So me and Jack think, anyway, and we've talked to this by other guests, that we would rather have a team win the championship in whatever sport it is, including hockey, and then even go away for a few years and rebuild and go back again. What do you think? Would you rather have that competitive team every year, or you want to win that cup and the next few years, well, whatever?
I don't know. I mean, it's a bit of a tough question. I definitely understand the appeal of winning a championship and then deciding to rebuild after that. But I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I mean, the Islanders have gotten this far with their current core, and they've made a few minor upgrades, like I said. I mean, nothing too massive, but at the end of the day, I mean, they're clearly confident in the core that they have, and I think a lot of the fans are too.
Carter, which team helped themselves the most this offseason, you would say, of all the teams in the NHL?
That's tough. I'd probably go. I'll say New Jersey. I think the Devils had a pretty good offseason. They brought in Dougie Hamilton on the blue line. They upgraded their forward core a little bit. They made their prospect pool a little bit deeper by drafting Luke Hughes. So I would say New Jersey. I don't know if it's enough to necessarily get them to the playoffs in a pretty tough Metro division, but yeah, I'd have to say New Jersey.
Yeah, of all the teams that got eliminated in the playoffs, and only one can win the Stanley Cup, so everyone else is disappointed to a degree. But I think the team that took the hardest hit with the most disappointment was the Toronto Maple Leafs. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have they done anything to address this situation? Are they thinking they're just going to come back with the same team and try to win it next year?
It's funny because I actually think their forward core got a little bit worse, and their goaltending did as well. So, I mean, I don't know what to do with the Leafs at this point. It looked like they would have won that series last year against the Canadiens, and they kind of just gave up, I guess. I don't really know what to call that. But at the end of the day, though, I mean, they've definitely made some interesting decisions. not really any high risk moves. It's just a couple of depth pieces here and there. They added a backup goalie, so I mean, if these moves wind up working out for him, it could have some pretty good consequences. But we'll have to wait and kind of see what happens.
Well, Anders Lee looks like he's healthy this year for you. You get Palmieri at the trade deadline, right? I mean, it looks like you're going to have, like I said, Anders Lee there. Palmieri is a good player. I mean, he's a little older, but he's still a good player. And you got a few younger guys that might have to come in and fill in. And the guys that I looked at was Jason Chimera, Brad Boys, Valtteri Filppula, I think is how you pronounce it. They played a little bit. Do you expect their roles to get a little bit bigger this year, Carter, with some of the guys you lost?
Not really, considering they haven't been on the team in a few years. They're not on the team right now, so
they're not.
No, they're not. They haven't played for the Islanders.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask you another question about that. I'm sorry. Noah Dobson, Oliver Wahlstrom. I mean, guys like this. I was going to ask you another question about those guys. I read the wrong line. So, from Noah Dobson's point, Oliver Wahlstrom's point, do you see them getting a little bit more time?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, I think last year they had solid rookie seasons, both of them, and looking at Wahlstrom, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with him, where he winds up in the lineup. I mean, I think a lot of people are expecting him to play on that top line with Barzal, and I think those two would definitely make a great pair. With Dobson, I think his role is going to be even bigger than it was last year, considering he was playing in kind of a sheltered role on the third pairing. Now that Nick Leddy's gone, I think he'll just kind of slot up and play in the top four. So yeah, I'm definitely expecting a lot more out of the two of them coming up.
I got a question from David, but I want to get your thoughts now on the three individuals. I know they left the Islanders, but they had not long careers. Of course, some of them only one season, if I remember right, but they had some really good seasons for you. And a lot of people, a lot of people don't know what they did in 2019. I think one was in 2017, if I remember right. So I read an article on what they did for the Islanders in those years. And can you tell me anything about those three? That's what I was going to get to on the next question. So,
yeah, I think, looking at the three of them, I mean, they played a little bit differently. I mean, Filppula was near the end of his career when he was an Islander, but as for Chimera and Boys, the two of them were pretty physical. I mean, they were never guys who were going to lead the team in points, but at the end of the day, they were good role players, good kind of depth options to have if you were going to make a decent playoff run. The Islanders weren't the greatest when they had those guys on the team. They made the playoffs with Boys, I think, once or twice, but I outside of that, it really wasn't anything too impressive. So, yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, they're decent depth pieces, but they're not gonna put up 50, 60 points a season.
And I ask you that because, I'm a lifelong Giant fan, and there were some bad years the Giants had, but there's some players that were really good on those teams. In fact, all pros. And even though, when you talk about a certain team, you talk about historically, you talk about these great, great players. Some of those guys, you don't even hear about anymore. And, on the Giants, it was like a Ralph Heck and a Willie Williams and Fred Dreyer, who went on to play with the Rams, played a lot better, had a lot of better team to play on. But, when you talk about teams, and I imagine Jack on the Jets has some players that weren't really huge stars that he kind of followed and that, made the contribution to the team while they were there. And to me, it's interesting how different people can, the fans actually look at their team. They look at everybody, the real fans anyway, and not just the stars. So any other thing you want to talk about the Islanders? Any kind of thoughts you have with them coming up this year, Carter? You looking for them to be better, the same, maybe fall into a lull? What do you think?
I don't know, to be honest with you, because I'm expecting them to at least make the playoffs, but I'm a little concerned about this 13-game road trip that they have at the start of the season. So, they weren't the greatest on the road last year, but they're going to have to prove that they can win on the road in order to keep themselves in the playoff race. And playing some weak teams during that road trip, so I'd expect them to, at least be above 500. By the time like Thanksgiving rolls around, that's when it'll end. That's pretty much it about the Islanders. And no, I don't think Buffalo is going to make the playoffs. But Buffalo, I don't even want to talk about Buffalo because I don't have anything nice to say about Buffalo just based on what they've done this offseason. I don't honestly think it's going to get any better anytime soon. So I'm not gonna comment much on that.
Okay, well, Carter, we're gonna let you go. We'll have you back next week and see if we got any more Islander updates or something from the East League anyway, where we can talk about. Always a pleasure having you on and listening to your expert opinion on a lot of hockey. So again, thank you for coming on, Carter, and you have a great day. And pretty soon, man, a couple of months, ready to rock.
Yeah, I'm getting ready. It's exciting. So thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Take care, Carter. So there you go, folks. That's Carter Bevinga. We call him Carter B because it's a lot easier to pronounce for me, our NHL's expert. Jack, your team is backstage right now. I should say a major representative of your team is backstage right now. The Jets, of course, opened up this week. They played a good game against a tough team. But right now we got Randy Lang, who is I would call him the senior media consultant over there. I mean, there's a lot of titles that I want to try to call Randy. Ray says, don't call me this, don't call me that. Consultant is good for media, so we're just going to call him a senior media consultant. So let's bring up Randy and see how you doing. How you doing today, Randy?
I'm doing good, gentlemen. How are you?
Yeah, hi, Randy.
Not too bad at all. So is that a good one, Randy? The senior media consultant over there?
Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm at. Yeah, but
So
you put me in PR. They don't want me, and the football side doesn't want me. So consultant to the
Randy,
media.
The PR spin between the two quarterbacks, we knew before the game, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, how it was going to play out. And I think basically you could call it a draw. Sam Darnold did what he had to do. Carolina won the game. They were favored. He played a good game on balance, Sam Darnold. And Zach Wilson showed enough. So I don't think anyone is saying, the Jets should have kept Sam Darnold. It was a mistake. Worst case scenario would have been that Carolina won 31-0. Zach Wilson threw 4 picks, couldn't handle the pressure. But we didn't see any of that. We saw good things coming out of Zach Wilson. He was under pressure all game, but, he didn't make the rookie mistakes that he could have made. So I think it was kind of like win-win for both guys. They got that game out of the way, and everyone moves forward.
Yeah, I would say that's a real good analysis. And, we in the Jets try to downplay the matchup a bit. Everybody's going to talk about it, but we don't have to. But we obviously talked about Zach and his start and Sam. So, we mentioned it. But what I like the most about what Zach Wilson did is that he seems to have shown again that he's a quick study. He is a quick learner, and he applies things very quickly. I go back to the green and white practice of a month and maybe 5 weeks ago now, and he did not look sharp. He looked a little unsure. His feet were not, he wasn't planting them real forcefully. He was off target. I think he threw a few picks and didn't generate any scores against his own defense. And then he goes into the preseason games, and he looks fine. He looks like he belongs. Now, granted, those teams, the Giants and the Packers, were not playing frontline defenses, but they were playing pro defenses, and Zach showed that he could handle that. The bullets become live, and he looks a little shaky in the first half, maybe even into the third quarter. And then what happens? He turns it on, and it's a limited body of evidence, but I like what he's shown, where he can overcome a rough start, even in game, even in the process of performing, and show us that he's picked things up and he's able to, essentially turn that into a one-score game with some very fine passing down the stretch.
Let's be honest, this season is all about Zach Wilson. The Jets can finish with a 4-13 record, but if Zach Wilson is showing us a lot and Jet fans are happy that we found our quarterback of the future, the year's been a success. Robert Saleh is going to be evaluated as a coach. Well, he was developing Zach Wilson very nicely. I think that's what it comes down to. The Jets could go 6-11, but if Zach Wilson has a very poor year and the Jet fans aren't optimistic he's their guy going forward, the year's going to be deemed a failure. So it's all about Zach Wilson this year more than anyone else far and away, I think.
Well, probably that's accurate. Certainly, it's accurate on the outside, and I think Robert Saleh is going to try to maintain that hand on the tiller and and tell people whenever he gets asked about it by the fans and by especially the reporters every day that he speaks to them, that it's about more than Zach. It's about everybody. It's the collective. It's all gas, no brakes for everybody. But you want to see that progress. You want to see. And it's probably unfair because, as we talked about before, Sam Darnold had issues that were not of Sam's making when he was there for especially years 2 and 3. He just wasn't. And I hope that the protection problems that he had last year are not reappearing this year with a different cast in front of him, or a somewhat different cast, because that would be detrimental to a young quarterback's development. He had 6 sacks. He was sacked 6 times by the Panthers. He had 10 quarterback hits, so about 4 of those were hits that didn't take him down. And so you have to worry about that. And then, of course, Mekhi Becton is now gone for 4 to 6 to maybe longer weeks because of a kneecap issue. So now you've got George Fant on the left side. He's played there before, but he admits it's a tough switch when he played right tackle for all of last season with the Jets. And then you move in Morgan Moses at right tackle, and he's played there before. He did not win that job, according to the coaches and to Saleh. But, he's a proven pro. They got a lot of games and a lot of snaps between them at their positions right now. So going forward, they've got to protect the franchise. And, there's no better time to do it than against those hated New England Patriots.
Well, Randy, I disagree with Jack. I don't think it's all about Zach Wilson at all. I think it's all about a competitive football team. It's something the Jets haven't had in a long time. I don't care if it's defensively. Of course, Zach Wilson's got to play well. But they got to start being able to start running the ball. Their defense has to play better. Zach Wilson is a rookie. If you expect Zach Wilson to set the league on fire this year, that ain't going to happen. He'll play well. And I'll tell you, Randy, I think of all 3 quarterbacks that started Sunday, Zach Wilson played better than Mac Jones, played better than the guy over, than Lawrence. I mean, easily. I think, and if you think about it, Mac Jones is in a great position. He's playing with a team that's established, a team that has an offensive line, has a defense. Zach Wilson doesn't have that. Trevor Lawrence, they thought, in fact, in some drafts, I watched all the way through the draft, and some people had Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence as far as a potential draft. So I'll give you that. I'll give you Zach Wilson, I think, had a great game. I don't care about the interception. He took sacks well. But as you said, and I was going to say that before you did, if that offensive line can't keep him off Zach Wilson, he's going to run into the same problem Sam Darnold had. And so I think it's more about than Zach Wilson. I think it's more about the Jets having a competitive team on both sides of the ball. And, to win 6 games would be out of sight. I mean, never mind, it would be less impressive. I think it would be more impressive because Zach Wilson's going to play better as long as the offensive line plays better, right?
Yeah, and, like I said, internally, the view is a little different, obviously. They want Zach to do well. They're going to try to surround him with everything they can. But as you mentioned, there's more parts to this puzzle. And especially, we're on offense. Let's take offense. We saw Elijah Moore, who was very highly talked up during the preseason, during the draft process, offseason, did not have a good opener. I mean, he seemed, I don't know, maybe kind of lost. Maybe it was, it was a good transition game for him. He learned a bit. I think he had one catch for -3 yards and had a drop. And so there's a guy is going to produce. You hope he's going to produce at high levels. They haven't seen that yet. They were without Jamison Crowder. They were without Keelan Cole, who they brought in as an unrestricted free agent. They did have Corey Davis, and that connection looks pretty good. And the running game didn't get going. Obviously that's a concern, even though, they tried to, make it sound like it's a work in progress. It certainly is that. But we need to see more out of Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson. LaMichael Perrine is back this week, I believe. So the dirty yards, as Robert Saleh called them, the 3rd and 1s, the 4th and 2s, or whatever, they might be a little more doable now because Perrine has shown a really good, aptitude for getting those yards. And so you do want to see the progress every week around Zach. It's not about only Zach. It's about the offense producing. It's about the defense missing that key part right, early on, with, who the pass rusher, I've already forgotten his name.
Carl Lawson.
We have all the Lawsons on the team now. Shaq Lawson looked pretty energetic, but Carl Lawson was the big loss.
Carl Lawson, that's a big loss. I mean, they were counting on him. I guess Jets to be their main pass rusher.
Yeah, we're not going to see him this year, so you want to see the defense progress, but without a key piece like that. Yeah. And Jared Davis, got hurt, and he won't be back for maybe 4 to 6 weeks. So the inside linebackers are going to be C.J. Mosley and the 2 rookies. And you got the corners who are going to be on the spot probably every week, including this week when, they're going to have to go up. The nickel probably would be either Javelin Guidry or Michael Carter II going up against Jacoby Myers, who burned the Jets at MetLife Stadium last year. So you want to see progress, and there's no reason you can't.
As a defensive coach, so I think everyone's going to come around, and I think everything's going to gel. It's going to take a little time, but it's going to gel.
Right. Yeah, you want to see it. You want to see it start this week.
Right? Yeah,
sooner the better.
Offensive line concerns. I mean, the Jets did address it by moving up in the draft to take Vera Tucker. What type of player is he going to turn out to be?
Well, I thought he had a quiet debut. So, again, you have a rookie who's stepping into a big role, starting left guard. And, he's got to get his feet wet. He's playing against another left tackle this week. As we mentioned, George Grant going over there for Mekhi Becton. So, you say, well, that can't be good for a rookie's development. But Elijah Vera Tucker seems to be quite advanced for coming out of the draft as a rookie. He seems to have the head for it. He has the physical skills. He showed in training camp that he can get it done. So again, like Elijah Moore, maybe hey, he got his feet wet in that first game. Now it's time to take off, and there would be no better opportunity than against those Patriots because, like you said, like everybody knows. It's never too soon to start winning in the division, even if there's no chance of winning the title or, going to the playoffs. And I'm not saying that the Jets can't do it, but let's pay back some things for a change. Let's get those Patriots at home and, show them that we're going to be players and then get the Bills and the Dolphins after that.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, Bill Belichick's obviously one of the greatest coaches of all time, so I don't mean to take away from that. But whenever a young quarterback goes against Bill Belichick, we're making Bill Belichick to be out so much more of a genius compared to other coaches. He's going to have something for that quarterback. But last week, I kind of bought into that. I thought they were going to find a lot of ways to rattle Tua. And while they did a decent job, the Patriot defense against Tua, they didn't exactly rattle Tua, completely throw him out of his game. And the same thing with Zach Wilson. We're thinking he's going to set up so many schemes, the way they did against Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold, that famous line, he didn't know what was even going on when he played the Patriots.
So it goes.
I kind of get the feeling the Jets should be ready for anything Belichick and Josh McDaniels throws at him. Well, not Josh McDaniels. I mean, he's the offensive coordinator. Belichick. I mean, what do you think?
Well, it's certainly true that Belichick, the system certainly seems to be an equal star with anybody who's playing on that system, under that system. I mean, you look at the names every year. I'm just amazed. I don't even know some of the names of these guys, and yet they're performing at high levels. That's because of the system that Belichick has instituted over 20, how many years? 22 now, 23, and wins with it no matter who he has, to throw out there. So this is going to be a very good test for Zach Wilson. Belichick noted for changing the game plan up, game plan specific game plans, game specific, opponent specific. So Zach is going to see things he hasn't seen on tape this week. The Jets are going to have to protect the heck out of him, but it would be really good. I mean, the whole concept, as we were told, as the offseason went into the preseason and went into the regular season, is that the running game is going to be very important to this operation. And we didn't see that in the opener against Carolina, but let's see if we can see it against the Patriots, because, the guys on the line, even though it's been reshuffled, are still capable of opening some holes in that wide angle, the wide zone blocking scheme, and letting guys like Tevin, as we mentioned, Ty Johnson, Josh Adams, LaMichael, these guys, give them some lanes. I mean, Ty Johnson has been burst from a cannon when he's gotten that opening, as we saw last year. Not saying that, they're the greatest individuals, but they're pretty good as a team. I think they gave that impression that they could be a really good running back by committee. Get that started to help Zach out so that he can hit the play action passes, so that he can hit the off schedule throws like he did on the first touchdown to Corey Davis.
I do like Michael Carter, though.
What's that?
Michael Carter, I do like him.
I'd like to see more of him. He kind of, again, got off to a little slow start. I mean, he looks like he's game. He looks like he's very heady and can get the job done. But everybody had like they were getting hit behind the line, at the line, 1 yard across the line. That's not enough. I mean, that was what we had last year with the Jets, with Frank Gore and so on. So at some point, that's a thing that we want to see progress in. Is let's see them getting 3 yards, 4 yards before that first hit. Not every time, obviously, but enough so that they can then use their moves and break free and cut back, and then help set up Zach to find his receivers. And that should be exciting. I thought the Jets threw the ball a little more than I thought they would against the Panthers, even early. And it took Zach a little while, but he got the hang of it, and he felt very comfortable finding, like I mentioned, Corey Davis and even Tyler Croft and the tight ends, and he's got a few more targets this week. So that'll be interesting to see how he progresses there.
Randy, we do have Jet fans that follow us because, of course, we represent New York, not just the Giants and that. And I think, to me anyway, the running game with the Jets, if you guys can improve that, I think there was a question, can you win 6 games? I think you can win 6 games. I think you guys could win 7 games. In fact, I blew everybody's mind when we were predicting things. I think the Jets could have a really good season. You got a great head coach who's a defensive-minded coach. The only question to me was their running game. I knew Zach Wilson was going to be okay there. And to me, if that running game even can get, even if you guys can pick up 70 to 80 yards on the ground, is going to keep them linebackers honest, is going to keep them safeties up. And then you got a guy that's Zach Wilson who can throw that ball downfield. It opens everything up. And NFL, I don't care who the quarterback is player dependent on every scheme of that offense, and especially being a rookie. So I think, and I agree with you 100%, if you can get some kind of threat on the ground, and it doesn't have to be 100 yards, even 100 yards in a game, you don't have to run for that. Just to keep the ball, first of all, on the offense, you don't want to give it up to a big offense on the other team right away. You want to be able to control the ball a little bit. And secondly, to keep them linebackers and safeties honest. Because if you can't do that, you guys are not going to win 6 games this year. And to me, that's the biggest key, and I think you guys can do that.
That's a big key. And then the other key, I think, above and beyond everything, is let's see Zach Wilson, be accurate with the ball, which he has been known to be. At BYU, he was incredibly accurate. So I think it was like 74% completion accuracy. He wasn't that accurate to start against Carolina, but he finished very accurate.
Hey, Carolina's got a good defense.
They do. They do.
They got
I
a good
agree.
defense.
And maybe that was part of the learning process for him was, all right, now it's live and fast, and I got to adjust, and I'm getting hit. Let's see what I can do having processed all that. So he's got to get the accuracy going to where, all right, let's see like 10 completions in a row. That would be great. And also don't turn the ball over. Now, the interception, they explained it. I mean, hey, he's going to throw an interception or two. We know that. And he said he saw the player who intercepted the ball. I think it was Shaq Thompson. There's so many Shaqs going on these days. And so he saw him, but he didn't get enough on the ball. I think it would have been picked off by either of the Panthers that were in position for that one before it got back to Ryan Griffin. But that was the one turnover. The one hard sack he absorbed from in the red zone. I mean, that ball could have been coughed up very easily. The guy came down hard on the back of his helmet, popped up, didn't blame anybody, didn't chew anybody out in the huddle like, some precocious young quarterbacks might do. He just said, all right, let's go get him this time. And he then led them to their next touchdown to Corey Davis, a really good throw on that little out there in the end zone. And all of a sudden they're back in the game. So those are the things I want to see from Zach. Not necessarily the gaudy 300 passing yards and that kind of thing. I mean, they're nice. If they're there, let's get them. But let's see the progress in accuracy and no turnovers.
I'll tell you guys, put a smile to my face analyzing Zach Wilson's one interception. I couldn't help but think of the greatest quarterback in Jet history, Joe Namath, with those 5 interception games.
A few
the
times.
The way the game has evolved and changed. And, but listen, one good thing about Zach Wilson no one brought up in this game, there was some concerns about his durability. He took some hits, and he showed, let's not push the envelope on it, but, he survived it pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard a few times from, I think, I don't know if it was Andrew Catalan or Tiki Barber in the booth there or somebody else during the week maybe said the same thing. Gee, Zach's a little bigger than I thought he was. I mean, the guy's 6'3". I mean, he doesn't come across as being that tall, godlike figure like Trevor Lawrence, as we all know, is like 6'5", and he has the flowing mane, and so there's that thing going on for him, and we'll see that later in the season with the Jaguars, presumably. So, but he certainly has proven that he can take a few hits. Now, let's not try to find out if he can do it again, because eventually that's not going to lead to good things. I mean, we don't want to see Zach like Sam needing 2 or 3 games because he got hurt, getting a shoulder or getting a knee or whatever.
I'm going to say this, Sam Darnold, and believe me, I hope he does very well with the Panthers.
No, you don't, Jack. No, you
I do. I really do. But he never really exhibited great leadership skills that you want a quarterback to do. Maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe because he wasn't surrounded with the right pieces.
Maybe.
Whatever the reason. Is Zach Wilson already showing that he's a real leader? That team are trending towards that?
Well, I think he is, but it's hard because I'm not in the huddle, and none of the reporters are really doing the jobs that they used to do because of the fallout from COVID and so on. And everybody's very careful with the press conferences and no locker room access, and so you're not getting a lot of inside information from the horses' mouths as you used to, maybe. But everything we've heard and gathered is that, all the players who do come up and talk to us, the offensive linemen. I mean, the one thing I think that came out of that was I think both Fant and Moses said he was fine in the huddle. I mean, he didn't have, he wasn't coming up spitting blood and fire and saying, guys, what are you doing? You get me killed back here. He didn't do that. He popped up. He got himself together. He didn't show any signs of flustering, and he went out and got, the next play called and went out and operated and in some cases got a few scores. So it sounds like he is that kind of leader. He's there all the time. We know that from anecdotal evidence. Somebody said he was there at like 9:00 the Friday night before the flight out to Charlotte. Zach, why don't you go home? Well, I got to study a little bit more. The kid wants to do well. He loves the video breakdowns, and he loves all of the details of the game as much as he might like the bigger picture and being the quarterback of the Jets, which he also said he really wanted and really enjoys. And so we hope that he can continue to enjoy it.
Well, Randy, before we let you go, let's talk a little bit about the New England game, right? The New England Patriots are favored by 3.5. They lost in a heartbreaker to Miami at the end of the game. Big test for you guys. Jack says, Bill Belichick is a genius and kind of tongue in cheek. And in defense, I put him up right there with Tom Landry. I think he's one of the 2 best defensive coaches in the history of football. No, and I'm not kidding. But New England also has a young quarterback, and you have a defensive coordinator as the head coach. So I imagine there's going to be different schemes they'll be running against that quarterback too. I can see the Patriots trying to run the ball a lot on the Jets, trying to control the game, and putting pressure on Zach Wilson to try to win the game again. What do you think? I mean, I know you do talk to the coaches and players somewhat. What do you think that Sal will have in store for their young quarterback? Do you think he'll expect the Patriots to try to control a game? Or do you think he might see Mac Jones trying to open it up a little bit?
Well, I mean, he threw 29 out of 39, had a very nice day after. I think that first pass kind of went awry. Seemed like it was a Sam Darnold moment almost from 2018. But Mac looks like he's cool, calm, and collected and certainly experienced enough to do the same kind of job that Zach is trying to do with the Jets, which is, all right, I'm the quarterback, but I don't have to win every game. I don't have to put everything on my shoulders. I can be a part of this operation, and we'll let the other guys do their share too. I mean, you got Damian Harris as the running back who had a bad fumble, obviously cost them probably the game late in the red zone, but 100 yards. He's run against the Jets well. James White has beaten the Jets once or twice. So those guys are dangerous. Jacoby Myers, like I mentioned, I don't know where he came out of, but, man, I hope he goes back because he was phenomenal against the Jets last year, catching balls from Cam Newton. So I would expect, let's put pressure on the young man and see what happens. The one thing that interested me from the Jets' defensive point of view is even without Carl Lawson, even with Shaq Lawson being new to the operation, the whole object of the 4-3 was 4-man aggressive front going after the quarterback. The Jets did stand 5- and 6-man rushes against Sam Darnold, and he's experienced. So I would like to see probably a little bit of that pressure and see some guys spring free against the Patriots. Again, their offensive line is always on their game, and at least it always seems that way. So you got to beat them to the punch, and you got to apply that pressure and make Mac Jones do what we said we don't want Zach to do, which is throw that ball, put it up for grabs, put it on the ground like Josh Allen does quite a bit still, even with the new contract. So let's see that pressure be applied and see what happens there. And then, of course, if he beats it, if he's that good, well, then we'll adjust. But I'd like to see that.
I agree with that. Randy, thank you for coming in and spending some time with us. We love you coming in and talking about the Jets. We don't get enough news on them. Being in New York, they kind of, they're kind of, I don't want to say shunned, but the Giants own the town. Buffalo's going to Super Bowls. And the way the Giants are playing, you guys have a real good shot.
It's a rebuilding year, Matt. Relax. It's a rebuilding year.
Listen, I've seen some rebuilding teams get up there and get in the playoffs. So anything's possible. And you know something? I'm just glad that the Jets made this change at head coach, and I think you guys are going to be really good for the next few years. Randy, hopefully get you back around the midseason. We'll do a update with the Jets, see how they're performing, and have you on some views and updates on the Jets if that's cool with you.
That sounds great, gentlemen. Great to be with you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay. So there you go, Jack. Randy Lang, senior media consultant over with the Jets, giving our Jets fans a little bit of information that they don't get, except if you're watching the Jets show. So
listen, it's good to be a senior media consultant with the Jets because the Jets are basically given a pass this year. People aren't angry. Imagine being the senior media consultant for the Green Bay Packers. after last week. How are you going to spin that one?
Well, with all that off season with Rodgers, and now he looked like he was almost throwing the game and smirking on the bench. I don't know, Jack.
And then the coach afterwards, Matt LaFleur, says this was embarrassing, and Rodgers says, I wouldn't use that word. It's just one game, It's like, wow, that's a little soap opera brewing in Green Bay unless they right the ship this week against Detroit.
I'll tell you, Jack, what did I tell you about the offseason? Everybody said, don't matter, it don't matter. Oh, everything matters.
Let's wait. It might just be one game. But
you're right. You're right.
A lot of storylines in the NFL. You talk about Zach Wilson with the interceptions. Baker Mayfield, who played a pretty good game against the Chiefs, he threw a disastrous interception to end their final drive. Right. Awful. You wouldn't expect that from a guy who wants to be an elite quarterback, or who at least is maybe thinking he's trending towards that. So mistakes are made, but you would expect that more from the rookie quarterbacks, not the established quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield.
It happens. I mean, as we saw with Rodgers, established and throws interceptions.
No, but this was on the last drive of the game while they were driving, against the Chiefs on the last possession.
I understand, but you got to understand, too, Cleveland's still the new guys on the block no matter how good they are right now, Jack. In that tier, anyway. So, folks, we'll be right back after these messages. On the other side, we'll give you a little bit more sports, and then at 9:30, scheduled for 9:30 anyway, we have Brady Tinker, Dallas Cowboy expert. And we have a lot to talk about Dallas. Dallas's game. There were some good things, but there were some very alarming things to me about the Cowboys. And they don't got it any easier this week coming up, Jack. They got the Chargers. So we'll be right back after these messages, folks.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211-INFO line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m., live on Facebook and the YouTube channel on Northeast Streaming Sports, also streaming live to Twitch right now. Jack, so we had Randy Lang on, your team, the Jets, and, he's always, I don't want to say he's not always, he doesn't just prep his team and make it sound great. He's always got caution in his voice when he says something about the Jets. And I think a lot of Jets fans are like that too, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't think if you guys started 6-0, I think you guys would be, we still got, 11 games left. So let's not get all excited. I mean, it's just something I think the Jets fans are kind of, I don't want to say they're in a rut, but it's like they expect the worst. It kind of bothers me that way.
No, I think this year's a little different. This year, unlike other years, there are no expectations, okay? Because they have more new players on this roster than I think they've had in many a year. And we want to see who's going to be the future of the New York Jets, who's going to be sticking around. It's kind of weird, but this year's like an audition for a lot of players. Who's going to be part of the program going forward? Obviously, you're counting on Zach Wilson. We talked about a lot. I mentioned the running back, Michael Carter. There are two Michael Carters on the team from North Carolina. And you want to see who's going to be the nucleus of the receiving team. Elijah Moore struggled in his first game. That was a disappointment. Vera Tucker over there, on the offensive line, you moved up to draft him. You expect some big things, and the defense, certain of the pieces there. Who's going to be staying in the long run? I mean, is Mosley going to be, a factor going forward? And it's just auditioning, basically, who are going to be the pieces in the team going forward. And we're not sure. We'll see how the year plays out. It's less about wins and losses than it is about player development this year. And this is coming from a Jet fan. I don't hear Jet fans complaining. Look, they lost to the Panthers. Is anyone complaining? Unlike the Giants, where people are up in arms, there are high expectations for the Giants. Joe Judge had his honeymoon period last year. He's back. His honeymoon period's over. But Robert Salah, this is his honeymoon period this year. Next year, if the Jets are in the same situation as they are right now, you're going to hear the Jet fans start coming out complaining. There's going to be discontent. So the Jets better enjoy this free pass this year because it's not too often you're given that.
Yes, I'm glad you brought up the next topic I want to talk about. Of course, the Giants are playing the Redskins this tonight in Washington. Fitzpatrick is hurt. He won't be playing. Heineke will be starting. We picked the Giants as a group, me, you, and Jim Jeffcoat, as battling for the top position in the NFC East. And I'll tell you, last year, the Giants' defense improved. The team went from 4-12 to 6-10, and that's without Saquon Barkley. The offense was terrible. There's no doubt about it. They did what they had to do. The Giant defense kept them in a lot of games, and the Giants won some games. Daniel Jones is 4-0 against the Washington Redskins. For some reason, he plays very well against the Washington Redskins. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I have no idea. But that's the past. And as you said, a lot of Giant fans are upset with the Giants, and they have every right to be, because Sunday's game was just, I did a video on it. I don't want to get into what I said on the video, but one of the things I used was they played like crap. And
Mac, we gotta watch our language here.
Well, I know,
your team, the Giants. You're a fan of them.
I know, and I've been a Giant fan for a long time, and rooted for many a bad team, Jack. But there's one thing I always knew about the Giants: they never looked like they gave up, and they always played hard. And that wasn't the at home, their first game. That wasn't the case. Joe Judge came in. I like his style. I like his frankness. I like the way he carries himself. That he's old school to me, which is fine. But a lot of words were said that is being very physical. They weren't very physical with the Broncos. Their defense didn't play well at all. Their offense, their running game was nil, nothing there. Jones was efficient. I mean, he did have that one fumble sack that just made me almost cringe. But he was efficient. His numbers were okay. But that's not how you win football games. You play football games, you win football games by playing smart and playing tough. The Broncos just ate up the clock when they had the ball. They went down, they scored touchdowns. And even though the Giants had the lead at the half, Denver came out and they played very, very well. And a lot of people talked about Denver, Jack. If you remember, during the preseason, they Denver's improved. Teddy Bridgewater is not Russell Wilson, but he's a very competent quarterback. He's pretty accurate. He may not be able to take you over the hump, but he sure can get you there, Jack.
I'm going to tell you, you know who we tend to always blame when a team underperforms? We blame the coach and we blame the quarterback. But the Giants' problems went beyond that. The offensive line, Von Miller, his first game back after being injured and out last year, he gets a couple of sacks. I mean, and if you look at the Giant personnel on that team, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Blake Martinez, and so on. And Teddy Bridgewater looked like, a Pro Bowl quarterback, the way he was performing. And that's what disappointed me more, the Giants' defensive effort, okay? And Teddy Bridgewater would be running a lot of these so-called fancy fakes. It reminded me of the wishbone in college, the way it would be over-exaggerated, what he'd be doing. In the Giant defense, it didn't seem to have any spark. They, and that was the key word. Nothing was rallying the team at all. And Daniel Jones, like you said, his numbers weren't bad, but he looked very ordinary at the end of the day. Okay, and maybe we're underrating Denver a little. Maybe it's just one game. Tonight's going to answer a lot of questions. It's a short week. You can never underestimate that. Which game took more out of which team Sunday? Because the Washington football team lost a tough game to an LA Charger team, 20-16. But the Chargers are a pretty good team. They're actually underrated. So both teams need this game pretty badly. But at least the Washington football team is very competitive, and the Giants weren't. But listen, the Giants need wins. I don't want the Giants to lose this game 24-23 or whatever, and it's a great game, and they take nothing out of it. It's a colossal failure if they go to 0-2, because they desperately need a win here, to right the ship after what happened against Denver.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long season, Jack, right? I mean, we know it's a long season, but, these are division games. And at the end of the year, when there's any ties to see who might be a champion or a wild card team, those ties mean something. This is a big game for both teams. I don't know how it's going to affect Washington having Heineke as quarterback. Heineke has had some good games and some really bad games. In fact, he's known for throwing interceptions. So I expect the Giants defense to be a lot more aggressive than they were last week. I expect them to take a couple chances. And that offensive line has got to stand up to that Washington defense. They've done it in the past. I don't know how. I don't know how they play better against Washington's defense than the rest of the defense. It makes no sense to me.
And how long are the Giants going to keep waiting on Nate Soldier? Since they got him from New England. I mean, when they first got him, he was okay. But that offensive line of the Giants, I mean, you put Daniel Jones under enough pressure. I don't like the way Daniel Jones responds. I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as Saquon Barkley goes, if he's healthy, you play him. You don't limit him. If he's not healthy, don't put him on the field. Use the other running back. At least we know what we got. Because if you're expecting Saquon Barkley to go in for 5 plays and pick up 100 yards or 3, that's not going to happen. He's got to get his feet back underneath him. He's got to get used to playing again at full speed against other teams. So if you're going to use him on 11 plays, do me a favor, Giants. Do not use him.
We don't know how he is physically. The Giant coaching staff knows. Maybe out of necessity, they have to limit how much he plays. Maybe he's in. But with that said, I can't imagine there being any such thing as a guy being 80% physically ready to play. So you limit him that way. Either he's 100% ready to play or not. Some guys play when they're hurt, but when they have the type of injury Saquon Barkley had, either you're healed up completely or you're not. If you're not, you shouldn't be out there altogether.
Agreed.
If you are, you should be in there, obviously, for more than just 11 plays.
I agree. And you know, another thing that we picked up Galladay on the offseason. I think he had one catch. Sterling Shepard was the one that set the if you want a bright spot for the Giants, you'd have to talk about Sterling Shepard. I think it was 13 catches for 100 and something yards, and he had that one big touchdown. Wherein isn't that Cruz's number 3? That was Cruz's number in preseason. That's right, when he played against the Jets. But listen, Sterling Shepard looks healthy. Ingram probably won't play again. They didn't use their new tight end that they picked up from the Minnesota Vikings.
Kyle Rudolph.
They didn't. They threw to him, I think, once.
What's the Evan Ingram situation?
He's out, Jack. He's hurt again. I mean,
but how long is he? He's not out for the season.
You know something, Jack? I hope he is. To be honest with you, to be honest with you, they got to get rid of that man and pick up another young tight end. They need. I mean, Ingram,
like Kyle Rudolph could be the full-time tight end. He could handle that, you know. But Evan Ingram gives them another dimension. Kyle Rudolph doesn't. Kyle Rudolph is essentially an outstanding blocker. Evan Ingram isn't. Evan Ingram, you know, he has difficulty with the drops, but he does open up the offense. He is a weapon when things are going well.
But not in the clutch, Jack. Not in the clutch. That's what you need him to do that stuff. Is in the clutch, not during the game when we're either winning or losing bad. That doesn't help us. He's got to.
Carlos said Ingram's back in 2 weeks, and they can use him. He can do some good things.
Well, he's out for 2 weeks. So, and again, Galladay, I think, had 1 or 2 catches at the most. It was Shepard, and you know, Slayton did okay. He had 1 good catch, and then he dropped a couple. So, I mean, listen. The Giants.
Listen, the great quarterbacks spread the wealth. Look at Tom Brady, and no one's comparing Daniel Jones to Tom Brady, but Tom Brady gets all his receivers involved, all of them. He has a way of getting the ball to each and every one and keeping everyone happy.
Right, and Carlos brings up the comment about Tony, their young wide receiver that's supposed to be electric. You know, I didn't see him do anything. I mean, see, you know what? I'll give you an example. Play calling, which really ticked me off, Jack. Right, you're moving the ball down the field, and instead of running a reverse to somebody like Tony or Galladay or Slayton, who's very fast, they did a reverse to the tight end. And, of course, he got stopped like 10 yards back. And they were driving. That was one of the good drives they were having. And instead of continuing what they're doing, they put in a trick play, but they run the tight end on a reverse, on a tight end. I mean, listen, they have got to get the play calling right. I mean, I know Jason Garrett was supposed to be a great offensive coordinator, but his style or his what he said was he's going to change the philosophy and strategy and to the different teams how they call plays. Listen, do something good first. First, have an identity, and I think that's what ticks me off more than anything, Jack. Even the bad teams have an identity, right? They do something and they try to execute that well. The Giants don't throw the ball a lot and they don't run the ball a lot. There's no identity at all. Cleveland runs the ball, right? KC throws the ball. That's their identity. Now you gotta plan for that when you go up against them. And they may run the ball that game instead of pass, or they may pass instead of the run. But they make defenses concentrate on trying to take something away from their offense, right? So the Tennessee Titans, you know that big man is coming with that ball, and you got to get ready, and you've got to get ready for Henry running the football. That opens up the passing game. The Giants do not have that. And that's the worst thing about the Giants right now. You try to either run the ball well or try to, or pass the ball. I don't care what you do, but try something. Let's not say we're going to change our approach to every team. That's ridiculous. You're the offense. You're not the defense.
But that's the problem, Mac. That's the problem with how we're looking at things. I said a little while ago, we tend to blame the coach and the quarterback, and we tend to blame the whole offense. really we should be talking about the Giants' defensive effort, okay? I mean, why are we giving them a pass? We're talking about what the offense didn't do.
I agree.
I mean, if the Giants are to make the playoffs, it's going to essentially be because their defensive unit performed really, really well this year, and they just weren't up to standards in this game.
I agree with that, too. I agree with that.
I mean, Denver hit on all the big plays, it seemed, all afternoon, and kept the chains moving.
Yes.
And Denver was playing with a certain enthusiasm, and you didn't see the enthusiasm with the Giant defense. Blake Martinez tried to fire up the troops to an extent, but they just weren't responding.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's what bothered me more than what went on offense. Their defensive effort, I mean, just wasn't there.
Yeah, I agree with you there too, Jack. I agree. You've got to be able to stop the other team sometimes. I mean, to have a shot. So let's talk a little bit about Green Bay. I told you, Jack, and I know it's only one game, but I told you all the talk that Rodgers did about, they didn't have a team that was built for the Super Bowl, right? So he's saying their team is not good enough. The players on the team is not good enough to win a Super Bowl. All this about, Rodgers is, he wants out. He loves everybody there. He loves the players. He loves the fans. He loves, even the backup quarterback. And then he comes out and says, well, you drafted him in the first, start him. Don't worry about it. And then during the game, Rodgers plays terrible. Terrible, Jack. One of the worst games I've ever seen him play. And they showed him sitting on the bench smirking. And the coach comes out, as we talked about before the show, as you said, the coach said we were embarrassed. It was embarrassing. Roger said, that's not it. It's just a loss. I believe that we don't take in consideration chemistry on teams enough, Jack. I've seen a lot of talented teams over the years. The Bengals back in the 90s. I've seen a lot of talented teams that couldn't put it together. And it's got to be chemistry. It's got to be the players having something special with each other on the units and as a team as whole. And right now, I don't think the Packers have that, Jack.
I'm concerned, I'll be honest. That was a big red flag. Let's see whether it gets corrected this week. If the Packers rout the Detroit Lions, one of the weaker teams in the NFL, despite the Lions rallying late against the 49ers to make it a close game, if the Packers win big, Rodgers plays an outstanding game, all's forgiven, they're focused, ahead on the schedule. They're still Super Bowl contenders, and he would have been right, Rodgers. It's one game. Let's forget about it and put it in our rearview mirror. If the Packers struggle to beat a weak Detroit Lion team, I'm very concerned, very concerned. If they lose to the Detroit Lions and Rodgers has a chippy attitude, my attitude is, let's see if we can move on from Rodgers at this point. Even though the season, I don't want to say they'd be giving up on the season, but really keeping Rodgers around, things really going to get better if they should lose to the Detroit Lions, and Rodgers should have some type of attitude with that. So it concerns me going forward. Listen, every team could have a bad game. They played the New Orleans Saints in Jacksonville. It was a terrible place to travel to. The heat, the humidity, it was out of the game. The Saint organization was very smart to put the game in Jacksonville because they knew it was harder for Packer fans to get there. So it was kind of like making someone who's flying on an airline. It's like you're making them take 3 connecting flights. And by the time they get to where they're doing, they're very cranky. They're not into it. And let's see what goes on this week. This week is going to answer a lot. Unless the Packers win a close game, then I'm still concerned. But because by all rights, if they're the same Green Bay Packer team, Aaron Rodgers is up to the task. They'll beat the Lions decisively. I want to see Rodgers' attitude, and I wouldn't put up with it for too much longer. If he's going to complain, if he's going to smirk on the bench, if he's going to say certain things, it would bother me. But what type of deal can you make for Rodgers in season? I'm sure there are a few teams out there who give a number 1 draft choice, give something up. I'm not sure which one, where he'd go to. And it would be interesting. Would Miami trade Tua for Rodgers, for example? Would the Eagles trade Jalen Hurts for Rodgers? I know Hurts played a great game, but it's one game. I mean, would the Giants actually pull the trigger on a deal? I don't think they would. They have 2 number 1 draft choices next year. Would they make so bold a move as to maybe give up the 2 number 1s for Rodgers? I mean, there are possibilities still in season, and that's rarely done in season. But I'm concerned. Rodgers, to me, and if this is coming from me, he's on probation this week. Have a big game against the Lions. He's off probation. Anything less, he's on it.
And let me tell you, Detroit gave San Francisco all they could handle last week. Goff had an impressive game. Let's talk a little bit about the Colts and Seattle. Listen, I thought Indianapolis's team was better than the Seahawks. I don't know if Wentz is ever going to be that quarterback, Jack. I don't think he's going to be. Wilson had a good game. Indianapolis, Wentz was, he wasn't even there. There's something about Wentz and the teams he's on. I mean, he had that one. I think it was his first year, Jack, wasn't it? Where he was up for the MVP or something. He looked
right. He didn't do that badly against Seattle. They put him in a position not to fail. It was a conservative game plan. He executed it okay, but they didn't open up the offense.
Why would you get him if you don't want to open up the offense, Jack? I mean, that's what you want Wentz for, right? That's why he should be better than Rivers.
It's building his confidence back first part of the season, and then the plan is to open up the offense with them as they go along.
Yes, I thought Indianapolis would at least give him a game, and Seattle looked like the Rams with Matt Stafford looked really good, Jack. They played pretty well.
The Rams have an outstanding team. They're just flat out better than the Chicago Bears. The controversies going around in Chicago, so many people are calling for Justin Fields. They don't seem to get it. Once the Bears put Fields in, there's no turning back. The Bears had a plan this year, a plan that Dalton was going to start, Fields was going to back up. They'll see as the year goes along, but people are pushing the panic button. Andy Dalton's been around a while. He's taken teams to the playoffs. Justin Fields is the future quarterback of that team. But let's not panic if you're the Chicago Bears, because you lost to a very good, LA Ram team.
And we talked about Rodgers, but Winston played very well. It looks like, Jim told us, listen, Sean Payton knows offense, man, and he knows quarterbacks. And it looks like he's right. It doesn't matter who he puts in quarterback, Jack. That quarterback shines, and they always find a receiver, and that Saints defense played awesome.
Well, Drew Brees didn't shine last year because he was on his last legs. And obviously, if Drew Brees was in his career, it would be insanity to say that James Winston would be an upgrade. But if you consider what Drew Brees was last year, I think Jameis Winston actually is an upgrade from the Drew Brees of last year. And Jameis Winston, if you eliminate the interceptions he throws, he has a potential to be an elite quarterback.
Yes, but you know something? I'm saying that, it's upgrade from Brees because he wasn't playing 100%. But every quarterback that he's put in there, even replacing Brees, was winning. Sean Payton, a great offensive coordinator, and one of the few offensive coordinators, Jack, that has become a great head coach. And kudos to.
You're right, Mac. Teddy Bridgewater won what was he, 5-0, replacing Brees, and Taysom Hill had some success. So
team, Jack.
Yeah, Sean Payton, one of the good coaches in the NFL. We can't argue that.
No doubt about that. And as you said, Kansas City and Cleveland, a tough game. I don't think Baker Mayfield will ever be anything but what he is, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's a very, very good quarterback. I mean, we use franchise quarterback very loosely everywhere. Franchise quarterback without a good team, first of all, can't be a franchise quarterback, as we know. But he is not in the same class as the upper echelon quarterbacks, Jack. He's just not that. But he is behind him, and he can win a Super Bowl with a good team. So let's not look for Baker Mayfield to come out.
Cleveland has never been in the Super Bowl since the Super Bowl started. if they get to the Super Bowl 1 year with Mayfield as their quarterback, then that made it worth picking him number one overall in the draft. Sometimes you see these fun stories like redrafting a draft. What order would you take guys in? And Josh Allen with the Bills, my guess is he would go number one, if the draft was done over.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Bills and the Steelers. The Steelers shocked people. Didn't shock me or Jim Jeffcoat.
Surprised the heck out of me. I got to admit, I was flat out wrong. But it is one game.
Right.
But it was a big game.
It sure was. I mean, this is these. I mean, even early in the year, Jack, and of course, as the year goes on, a lot of things are going to happen, and people are going to get hurt. People are going to, play better. You're going to find a surprise that you never thought was going to happen. And one of the surprises, even though it was against Atlanta Falcons, Jack, everybody says that. Oh, it was only against Atlanta Falcons. But they dominated the Falcons. Hurts looked very good. The running game, they use their speed, as the Philly sports guy Pags told us. The Eagles are very fast, and they looked very fast against the Falcons. 1-0. They're in first place in the NFC East. So, Jack, what's going to happen? I mean, are the Eagles, that defense played good? Again, they're going to say against the Atlanta Falcons. That's who they played. I mean,
let's not get carried away, Mac. We thought the Eagles were going to win the game.
Yes, we did.
They were a little more impressive maybe than people thought. I've been a Jalen Hurts guy. I've been high on Jalen Hurts. I'm not shocked, even surprised he performed as well as he did. Throwing the touchdown to Devonta Smith, the old Alabama connection, that gave a good feel to everything. And the thing that is good about the Eagles winning too, the rest of the teams in the NFC lost. So that means the Eagles are going to stay relevant for a little while because they have a one-game lead. And even if they lost the next 2 weeks, and I'm not saying they will, and one of the other teams wins the next 2 weeks, they'd only be a game behind. In other words, they're going to be in contention moving forward. And sometimes they have a team like that gels. They have a lot of veteran players back. So sometimes a team like that gels. And under Nick Sirianni, maybe there's a good culture brewing over there. Maybe the players are playing with a lot more enthusiasm than we think. Maybe this isn't a rebuilding year, a retooling year for the Eagles. Maybe they have an attitude of a win now, mode. But it's going to get tough as we go further into the schedule. I think they play the 49ers this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that'll be a tough game.
That's a tough game. That's going to be a tough game that we're going to evaluate a little more as we go along.
Yeah, I don't know if they're good enough to beat the 49ers or not, but I'll tell you right now, they'll play them competitive because, when you have a quarterback that can run, and Hurts showed he was accurate. That was the one thing I was worried about Hurts. Hurts showed he was a little bit accurate, and I think that if he can stay accurate, they have a shot against anybody, Jack. They're going to play anybody competitive.
Let me tell you, that 49er game against the Lions, they were up 28 points. They with like 10 minutes left. Joey Bosa in the 49ers, he's relaxing. He's out of the game. He's loosening his shoulder pads. And all of a sudden, they frantically have to run back, on the field, thinking he didn't think he was going to be playing anymore, that it was over, that the backups were going to be in there. And the Lions somehow stage a furious rally to cut it to 8, and then they have the ball back and they're driving.
I know.
I mean, the Detroit Lions, one of the worst teams in the NFL against the team that some people think is going to the Super Bowl, shows you can never tell.
No, you can't. You definitely can't. Touch on a little bit of what you thought about Jacksonville. I mean, Houston handed it to them, Jack, right? I mean, listen.
We picked Houston to win. I remember with Jeffcoat, we were like saying, I'm not surprised Urban Meyer, this is a potential disaster brewing, but Urban Meyer has a great pedigree in college.
Yes.
But supposedly there's dissension within his own staff.
Yes.
You don't see that with the Jets. I mean, the Jets at least everyone seems to be on the same page. But when Urban Meyer's insanity, they asked him would he take the USC job. He had to say no. And listen, Urban Meyer got off to a terrible start on a few things. He didn't really vet his strength and conditioning coach, who they had to let go. But then he made Trevor Lawrence compete against Minshew for the job. that meant Lawrence was getting less reps. Everyone knew Lawrence was going to be the starting quarterback because it would have been insanity to say you lost the competition to Minshaw. That would have been insanity, okay? So Trevor Lawrence got less reps. He wasn't as ready as he should have been for the season, and the players are complaining at Jacksonville. Who the heck are these guys to complain? They're losers. Worst team in the NFL.
Yes.
Okay, last year, the holdovers are the worst teams in the NFL. I don't mean they're losers in life. They're losers in the football record. That's what I mean. And they're in no position to complain, yet they're complaining about Urban Meyer.
Yes, and it happens, and they said Urban Meyer, still thinks he's the king of the castle, and maybe he is, and maybe he's not, and maybe he's got to adjust, Jack, right? He's just got to adjust to being a pro football.
Now I'm going to say something in defense of Urban Meyer. Tom Coughlin, when he first came to the Giants, was a little bit shaky. Veterans were complaining. They weren't happy with his ways, but they started to come around. Maybe that'll happen with Urban Meyer. But listen, Mac, if you lose decisively to the Houston Texans, who do you expect to beat this year?
Yeah. I mean, hey, Tyrod Taylor looked pretty good, Jack. Folks, we're going to take a real quick break. Hopefully, Brady Tinker from A Cowboy Life will be joining us after the break. If not, me and Jack will just keep talking about football. A lot of football news out there. Be right back after these messages.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Today is our first show on Thursday. We're on Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m., Facebook Live, YouTube channel, Northeast Streaming Sports. If you got a shot, folks, please go over and subscribe. It helps us build a network, the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, which funnels down to all the shows on Northeast Streaming Sports and makes us grow even more and more. We'll be able to get major guests, which we have been doing, Jack. I mean, we've got 3 new shows out there, folks. I'm going to pop them up for you real quick on the YouTube channel. You can check out. We've got Start Spreading the News, a Yankee YouTube exclusive show with Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan, both experts on the Yankees. It's a great show if you love the Yankees. We have J&B Talking Shop, which is Jim Chefcoat and Byron Williams, former NFL stars, who come on and they talk. And they have great guests, Jack. Last night they had on Pepper Johnson, 2-time Super Bowl champion for the Giants. Tony Tolbert, 3-time Super Bowl champion for the Cowboys. A lot of great football stories about when they played. And, of course, my co-host Jack Hirsch has a great boxing show on with Frank Lotirzo, who both of them very knowledgeable about boxing. It's a lot of fun to watch. Great views right off the bat. First show. They'll be back on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern with a lot of great information. So you get a shot, go to YouTube channel, Northeast Streaming Sports, subscribe, and get all the great shows, Jack. So, and one other thing, my co-host, I'll be reminding you about this every day this week. Jack Hirsch is going to the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame, where he richly deserves. And the International Boxing Hall of Fame will probably be up in a couple of years. Well, he'll be in there too. I will lobby for that, Jack.
Okay, well, Sunday when I'm on the dais, the affair's actually Sunday afternoon. You know I'll be checking up on the scores all the time.
Oh, definitely. So
it'll be, So if I'm going to be looking down, I'll be listening to the speeches, smiling, but checking on the updates and all. And
very cool.
But I thank you for your kind words, your support. The last couple of nights, I don't know what you were doing, Mac. I was watching the Met documentary, the 1986 New York Mets. It came in 4 parts. I don't think ESPN advertised it as well as they should have, because a lot of people didn't realize they were doing parts 1 and 2 one night and then 3 and 4 the next night. So I think there was a little confusion there. I realized that I watched all 4 parts, a total of 4 hours, and you knew a lot about the 86 Mets. It didn't really tell me anything new. You kind of relived it. And they did have a great team, but I wasn't as fascinated with the characters as other people could have been. I mean, I think they self-destructed. They underachieved. Some people might compare them to the Brooklyn Dodgers, who only won 1 World Series as well. But there's a difference involved. The Dodgers would constantly be running into great Yankee teams and always coming a little bit short. But they were always there, battling, pushing. And let's face it, Mac, had the Brooklyn Dodgers not moved to L.A. and kept the name Brooklyn, they would have won championships later on as the Brooklyn Dodgers instead of the L.A. Dodgers. And the Mets truly underachieved. I mean, Doc Gooden, the drug problem, Darryl Strawberry, a lot of different problems going on. And in the attitudes of the players, destroying the team playing. People may have laughed at that. Oh, they were gay. They were celebrating. It was obnoxious. It was sickening. You walk off the plane with vomit on you. On your clothes. It's sickening. And they only went to the World Series 1 year. That was '86. And don't tell me a team with that type of talent shouldn't have gone more. And listen, it's about attitude to a large degree. Take Darryl Strawberry. He became a New York Yankee later. He was a changed person when he was a Yankee because he had to. The Yankees weren't going to put up with the lack of discipline. He had to toe the party line, which he did. And he got 3 World Series rings as a New York Yankee. Dwight Gooden got a couple of World Series rings as a Yankee, pitched his only no-hitter as a New York Yankee, but we think of those guys as Mets. And but we think about all the characters, what happened, how the team was broken up. We saw during the documentary what a great leader Keith Hernandez was. I mean, Keith Hernandez truly was that. And it's good he's in the Met broadcast booth right now with Ronnie Darling, who seemed to be a pretty stable guy when he played. But Dwight Gooden, he had some sensational years, but he didn't maintain it. And what a sad story. They're having the parade after winning the World Series, and he's not there. He's watching on TV doing drugs with a few other people he didn't even know well. I mean, you talk about a sad story. And the guys they moved on from, Ray Knight, after he was World Series MVP, they offered him a 1-year deal. Knight turned it down. But what he got as a free agent wasn't as good as that. Lenny Dykstra, they eventually moved on from. They traded after winning the World Series. Kevin Mitchell to the San Diego Padres. The Kevin McReynolds. It didn't seem like a bad deal on the surface because McReynolds was a really good, solid player. But it didn't pan out with attitudes. But people glorified all their fighting, how dysfunctional they were. They didn't need to be dysfunctional to win. Okay, they didn't need to be that, yet they were that way, and they're glorified as a team to remember because of that. But let me throw this at you, Mac. If the Red Sox just got one more strike in the 6th game of the World Series, what would the Met legacy have been? There would be no World Series wins, and how would we think of them, now?
I mean, they were, they still won it, but they were lucky about Bill Buckner's error right through his legs. I mean, without that, listen.
Well, they had tied it. I don't blame Buckner. It wasn't that easy a play. Let me throw this by you.
It was an easy play, Jack. That was an easy
play. Would Mookie Wilson have beaten Buckner to first base? No, Mookie Wilson was lightning quick.
I know.
Buckner was kind of shifting his legs. We're going to debate that on a future show. I think that's a good debate to have.
I mean, listen. That ball went right through his legs. If he got down on the ball, I think he only had to dive to the back.
He shouldn't have been. He should not have been in there. They had Dave Stapleton was replacing him during the year defensively at first base late in the games. And John McNamara, the manager, he wanted Buckner to be on the field to celebrate.
Yeah, I understand.
He tried to do something nice for a guy. It truly backfired.
Yeah. So I mean, without that error, and as you said, last out, I mean, they would have had no.
Game would have been tied, Mac. Game would have been tied.
Listen. Didn't they tie the game on that, Jack? If I remember right, they came back.
No, they tied it on a wild pitch to Mookie Wilson right before he hit the roller. Okay. But the game would have been had Buckner fielded the ball. They got the out. The game would have went into extra innings tied. It's 50-50 at that point.
Right. 100% right. You're 100% right. So anyway, I mean, I've always wanted to do a special on the Mets, and maybe we'll do that eventually. I think we'll do a better job than any network can do anyway, because at least we'll be honest about it, and we're not going to glorify anybody for acting like idiots.
Well, Lenny Dykstra, how he'd be, how some of these guys kind of conducted themselves, and all the fights that took place on the field. You think the commissioner would want to do something about it? Listen, I forgot his first name. One of the Cincinnati Red player, Davis, he bumps into Ray Knight at third base. Ray Knight starts throwing punches out of nowhere. The umpire gets between them. Gary Carter tackles the Red player who's not even looking at him, not even fighting from behind. I would have suspended Carter 5 games. I would have suspended Knight 5 games. But none of that went on. Listen, it reminded me of the NBA, the bad boy Pistons. Bill Lambert would clothesline guys. And at the time, David Stern, the commissioner, didn't do anything, even though the league's most marketable player, Michael Jordan, was on the receiving end of it. But to David Stern's credit, years later, he said he regretted not dealing with the situation more aggressively. But now you can't get away with it to that extent.
Well, that's all. Yeah, that's and all that's true. But I want to get back to the NFL real quick, Jack. So the Raiders, they beat Baltimore. Another team Jim Jeffcoat told us to watch out for, right? The Raiders were going to be a pretty good team this year. Listen, the Raiders played well enough to beat Baltimore. Is Baltimore ever going to win a Super Bowl? Not just with Jackson, but with the style they use their offense, Jack, because they still depend heavily on Jackson running with the football. Now, is that ever going to win a Super Bowl? They may get them to the playoffs, but will that style ever win a Super Bowl, Jack?
I'm not sure. Can you pin it on the style? Remember Cam Newton, his MVP season with Carolina? They were 15-1 in the regular season and won 2 playoff games. So they were really 17-1 entering the Super Bowl. And had they gotten the right opponent and closed the deal and won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying about him? It would have proved the style can win. Well, but to answer the question, the answer is no. I don't think so, unless Lamar Jackson, can stay in the pocket a little more, hit receivers, and mix the running. You only want a quarterback basically to run to avoid a pass rush. I understand when you're driving late in the game, you'll make them part of your offense. It's 3rd and 3. He can roll out. He can run. I understand. You have a weapon in Lamar Jackson. So you kind of want him to run in certain situations. They say you don't, but you really do.
Yeah. What I mean, Jack, is the whole offensive philosophy. I mean, they depend, the Ravens have for the last few years, not that he'll take off when he has to, or that, there's design plays for him to run. And when you have a good running back in there, it's a little hard to stop because, then there's 2 people you got to be concerned about. But that's like a college system. And the Ravens have used that as part of their strategy the last few years. And if this don't work this year or next year, does that strategy disappear?
Let me tell you something. The wishbone works in college. Why doesn't it work in the NFL? Because we're told the players are stronger and faster. But Lamar Jackson is stronger and faster. So he's one of the few guys who can execute plays like that. But with that said, this talk about the Ravens, it's going to intensify after this weekend. They're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs have had the Ravens' number. If the Ravens should defeat the Chiefs, it signals, maybe the Ravens are going about things the right way. But if they should get beaten by the Chiefs again, and the Chiefs, like I said, have had their number, especially soundly, and Patrick Mahomes has a big game and Lamar Jackson is struggling, there's going to be a lot of discontent in Ravenland.
I agree with that, Jack. I agree with that 100%. And Joe Burrow's played a great game. Listen, I was going to throw these stats at Brady. I think Brady thought we went 9:30 Central, and we've been doing this too long with them to know that we're on from 8 to 10 Eastern time. So, it is what it is. The thing that alarmed me about the Cowboys was not that they played a good game, Jack, but they relied on Dak Prescott to throw 52 times. And let me give you some stats here, right? So when he was healthy, before he got hurt that year, when he got hurt after the Giants year, he played 7 games. He threw for over 40 yards twice, over 300 yards, I think 3 more times. And they still lost the games. And what I saw Thursday night was him just throwing the ball over the place again. Not that he's not a great quarterback throwing the ball. He is. But when he does that, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense because Tampa Bay is right back on the field again. And if they can't control the clock and keep the other offense off the field, and with no running game whatsoever last week, they've got to improve that. I'm a little worried about the Cowboys now. I thought they would be up there contending. But they're going to play in the Chargers. The Chargers got a good defense. And their quarterback ain't that bad either. And they got somewhat of a running game. If Dallas loses to the Chargers and Dak throws for over 400 yards again, what are we going to think about the Cowboys, Jack?
Listen, they played the defending Super Bowl champions, and they played them tough, nearly won the game. I think the Cowboys took something out of that loss in a very positive way. I'm a bit concerned Ezekiel Elliott, okay? He's supposed to be a workhorse there. He's supposed to be a reason why Dak Prescott should be throwing the ball a little less. I was also a little concerned about Dallas's pass rush. At the end of the game, they threw everyone at Tom Brady, yet they didn't really get that effective a pressure that they could have gotten on him as well. And at the end of that game against the Buccaneers, when Dallas was driving, they settled for a field goal because a field goal put them ahead. But to give Brady the ball back with 1:24 left wasn't the way to go. If I were Dallas, it would have been touchdown or bust. Because once you give Brady just a little time on the clock and all he needs is a field goal, he's going to get in field goal range. Okay.
Well, Jack, if you don't get that touchdown, you lose the game.
You do, but you're going to lose it anyway. You're going to lose it anyway. If you're counting on your defense to hold Brady.
I'd rather have the lead and give Tampa Bay the ball back than not have the lead and give Tampa Bay the ball back. I mean, that's just
traditional by the book football. Yeah, you're going by the handbook. Count on your defense. It just doesn't work. That's why I loved what Bill Belichick did years ago when the Patriots played the Colts. They were on their own 29-yard line, 4th and 3. Tom Brady has the ball. If you get a first down, you win the game. Peyton Manning doesn't get the ball back. But if you punt the ball, Peyton Manning gets the ball back with about 1.5 minutes, and he's going to drive his team down and score. Peyton Manning said that himself. When they had 4th and 3, he was hoping they would punt the ball and New England wouldn't go for it. He was telling that to Tom Brady when they were talking after. They went for it. New England didn't score. Indianapolis had in their 29-yard line, got a touchdown. You want to know something? They would have scored anyway. They tried to end the game when they could have. Okay? You don't start counting. The defense is not going to hold these elite great quarterbacks.
That's ridiculous, guy.
Marino, Montana,
ridiculous.
Brady,
That was ridiculous.
Manning. It's just not going to happen.
Listen, the Giants did hold Brady, and they did hold Montana. So there.
When they held Brady in the Super Bowl, the Giants. First off, they didn't. The first game, the Giants beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Brady scored a TD with, I think, 2:06 left. And by the time they got it back, there was only time for desperation passes down the field to Randy Moss. There wasn't time to drive their team. They had, about 20 seconds left.
How many points
did they score? You don't have time to drive your team. That's one. The second time it happened, second Super Bowl, there were 57 seconds left. New England had the ball, but New England didn't need a field goal. They had to get a touchdown.
Right.
And guess what? They got him in position for Hail Mary. But we're talking about Brady only had to be in position to get a field goal, not a touchdown against the Cowboys. If it was a touchdown, that's a different matter. But all he needed to do was get in field goal range.
I still think you got to take the points, Jack. Anyway, so let me give you some more stats here as you take me down an avenue. All right, now these are the winning quarterbacks, the yardage they threw through, and I want you to think about this for a minute. All right, Tyrod Taylor threw for 291 yards. Kyler Murray threw for 289 yards. Sam Darnold threw for 279 yards. Jalen Hurts threw for 264 yards. Russell Wilson for 254 yards. So what these stats are telling me, Jack, is that you don't have to throw for 300 yards. You don't have to throw for 400 yards to win a football game. In fact, if you have to throw that much, normally you're in trouble. Normally you're trying to play from behind. So a quarterback, and I think I said Joe Burrow still had only 261 yards, but very efficient, very accurate. So when you're throwing for 400 and 390 yards, normally it's because you're playing from behind and you're losing, your defense is no good. So to me, at the end of the game, I don't care fantasy football is fantasy football. But when you're winning the game, normally you're not throwing for over 400 yards. Normally you're throwing for mid 250s to high 200s to win. Now, on the other hand, Jack, you had Jared Goff, who lost, throwing for 338 yards. Kirk Cousins threw for 351 yards and lost. 3 out of 6 top quarterbacks' performances were losing for high yardage, while the other ones at 279 were winning, Jack. So I want to hear about the year of the quarterback, or this is a quarterback's league still, because they say that. But when you actually take a look at the stats, that doesn't reflect that. The quarterbacks that are thrown in the low 200, 250s are the teams that are winning. So that's just something to think about going forward. I mean, everybody wants to pump the quarterbacks. As long as they're efficient and they're throwing the ball well and accurately, you're going to win the football game. You don't have to throw for 450 yards. In fact, if you are, you might be losing the game, Jack.
I couldn't care less about those stats, Mac. The quarterback has to play to the game situation. It means absolutely nothing, those numbers, okay? You have to take.
What do you mean it means nothing? It means that it's the team that wins the game, Jack, as I've been telling you all along. Listen, if your quarterback is throwing for 400 yards, it's normally panic time. That's not how you win football games. It's that last drive you were talking about with Brady, right? That's how you win the football game. If you're dependent on your quarterback, because we talk about quarterbacks all the time and how they throw the ball around the field, that's not necessarily true. The winning teams, most of the winning teams, didn't throw for that much yardage.
Mac, it doesn't tell what passes were completed. Right. A quarterback could hit 2 45-yard passes, okay? Right. And that's a total of 90 yards, as opposed to another quarterback who's throwing the ball 8 times to try to get that type of yardage. And you're playing to the situation like you really are. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have more yardage. You're playing from behind. I mean,
you saw that. You saw that with the Cowboys. They were playing from behind. That's why he was throwing for 52 times, Jack. I didn't put in how many times, but it was 20-something times. Late teens, 20-something times.
It was an aggressive game plan by the Cowboys. They weren't passing that much. They felt out of necessity because they had to catch up. It was obviously part of their game plan from the very beginning.
Yeah, well, it definitely was when you give the Zeke the ball only 11 times. Terrible game plan. Jack.
And maybe the problem, maybe it's time to get a little concerned about Zeke.
Maybe.
Didn't have a good year last year. Maybe we have to get a little concerned. He had one 13-yard run. They don't need him to be an explosive back, but they need him to be at least to grind them out tight, take some of the pressure off of Prescott. And we could hear all we want, the offensive line, this and that. The offensive line was improved over last year. I know Zach Martin was out.
Yeah.
But if Prescott can be effective passing the ball with that offensive line, certainly they should be somewhat effective running it as well.
I agree. I don't think you should put it all on him, because we know that a lot of great quarterbacks have never won a Super Bowl. Anyway, Jack, that's about it for the show, folks. Tomorrow we'll have a great show for you. We'll have on Byron Williams, our NFL analyst. We'll have on Keith Engel, TGI Sports, the Philly sports guy. And tonight, folks, Mac and Mac top picks overall between me and J Mac. We're 9-3-1, not bad. So tune in tonight around 6 p.m. Eastern, and you'll see us give you some plays on some bets. So, Jack, it for today's show. Sorry about Brady Tinker, folks, but, it happens. But tomorrow back with another great show. And, of course, we got our Saturday debate and then our Sunday big football show. So have a great, great Thursday night, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.